Let's now talk about another important issue here. Can the pragmatic development be taught in instructed situations or not? To focus on this question, we'll rely on various opinions coming from various scholars. In this regard, I would just start with Lucastro, who focuses on the development of pragmatic competence in instructed situations, let's say for classrooms or any other formal arrangements which are created to teach people the language or its pragmatic norms. Situations could be created in which people can try to create some natural or natural-like situations, but let's see how much is that possible. Casper and Rose argue, based on their research, that pragmatic norms of a second language, or in simple words, the pragmatics of a second language can be taught in classroom settings, provided the teacher is able to conduct some kind of research, maybe formal or informal research on his or her students about their ability to grasp and understand the pragmatic norms of the second language. Krekis used the following linguistic devices as the first stage to raise pragmatic awareness about assertiveness. Here, the researcher tried to know how his or her students respond to certain forms of assertiveness, and therefore it was concluded that what forms would probably be preferred first over others in a sequence of teaching the pragmatic norms of second language. For example, in relation to assertiveness, the participant here first identified the qualifiers such as it's a kind of frustrating, and then they were able to understand and identify tag question, isn't it a kind of stuff. Then they were able to identify neutral statements, for example, on Thursday at 4 o'clock, etc. And then they were able to identify strong assertions with expressions like definitely or I'm sure, and they were able to use them. Based on this, we could probably get a clue that teachers should focus on teaching the pragmatics of assertiveness based on such studies. Casper and Rose emphasized on the teaching of speech acts, various speech acts in a certain sequence by involving certain steps. For example, if somebody has to teach the speech act of requesting, it may be said that students should be taught, and in front of them it should be highlighted the function and relevant socio-cultural information of the target culture or target language, and it should be emphasized that how request may be made in the target language and what kind of importance of request is there in that L2 society. Then the students may be introduced to the grammatical or linguistic items which are usually used to enact a request in the second language. In this regard, we can also move to another context. Let's say, for example, in a research based on Japan, it was informed that Japanese students are actually taught about the social norms of a second language as well as their own language, and they are also taught about the cultural practices and the pragmatic meanings of the routines in their lives. And those students are actually instructed how to conduct their routines in a pragmatically coherent and acceptable way. Then we can see that even in our own languages, children cannot learn to say simple expressions like thank you without the help of adults, especially at the early stage of their learning. It's always the elders or the parents who always teach their children when to say thank you, and then they start practicing it, and it becomes a part of their linguistic repertoire. Similarly, students probably would need some kind of instructional help to learn the pragmatics of second language also. Local teachers can teach pragmatic competence in a better way. For example, non-native English teachers probably would be in a better position to teach the pragmatic norms of a second language, provided they themselves know it. Because in such a situation, they would be able to teach their students those pragmatic norms in combination with the local pragmatic norms, and the students would be able to adjust between their local pragmatic norms as well as the pragmatic norms of the second language. So that makes it a kind of social adjustment which would have a better impact on their overall social learning as well as overall linguistic learning. Teachability of pragmatics also involves production, and that is the ability to interact in spoken discourse in the L2. It's not enough that we teach our students how to behave pragmatically in the context of second language. Rather, we should make them practice, we should make them produce their own knowledge in various situations where pragmatic knowledge is very important. For example, we should introduce them to various activities which involve the performance of key speech acts, for example, requesting, ordering, meeting with others, greetings, etc. In this regard, as I said a while ago also, a parallel between the pragmatics of L1 and L2 and their instruction may be helpful in the development of the overall pragmatic competence of our students. For example, if they're taught the pragmatics of second language in combination with the pragmatics of first language, they would be able to draw a healthy comparison between them, and probably they can make themselves or with the help of their teachers the necessary adjustments to develop their overall power of communication.